You plant your peppers on Mother's Day, the way your father did. And that one tradition guarantees you spend the first weekend of June at the Chain Garden Center buying replacements. Here's what nobody at the Chain Garden Center will tell you. One of these 5 mistakes can take a healthy pepper transplant, 8 inches tall, budded for an August harvest, and reduce it to a stunted plant that sits doing nothing for 2 weeks, then collapses on the first cool night. The chain depends on it. They sell you the transplant once, then sell you the replacement 6 weeks later. I sold the replacement plant to thousands of customers in May and June. I knew within 10 seconds what they had done wrong. I never told them. That is mistake number 3. When we get to it, I will show you the $4 tool that prevents it cold. 5 mistakes you must never make growing peppers in June. Get June right, and the pepper bed feeds you straight through October. My name is Walter Mercer. 34 years selling pepper plants and replacement pepper plants out of an Ohio chain garden center. Retired now with the notebook open. Before we start the countdown, drop your state and your USDA zone in the comments. A gardener in Zone 5 in Minnesota and a gardener in Zone 9 in Texas are fighting different battles in June. I want to see who is out there. The mistakes that follow apply across all American zones, but the timing and the regional variation matter. 2 things to know before the countdown. Peppers are a warm season crop from Central and South America. They do not tolerate cold the way tomatoes tolerate cold. 2. A stressed pepper plant aborts the fruit before it commits resources. Every mistake on this list stresses the plant somewhere: temperature, water, nutrients, or root environment. Get anyone wrong, and the plant survives but produces nothing. Get number 3 wrong, and the plant does not survive at all. Now to the countdown. Number 5. The first mistake the customer makes at the garden center before they even reach the parking lot. Walk into the pepper section of any chain garden center in late April. Count the varieties. Most years you will find 4. California Wonder, a generic sweet green bell, jalapeno, maybe banana or cubanelle. The customer buying a bell pepper transplant in this country is almost always buying California Wonder propagated by Bonnie plants in a 1-quart pot at $4.98 at Lowe's and Home Depot. California Wonder was bred in the 1920s. It needs a long, warm season, struggles in humid summers above 85 degrees, and produces few peppers per plant compared with regional alternatives. The chain stocks it because the customer recognizes it, not because it grows well in the customer's yard. The varieties that actually produce reliably: Big Bertha for cooler northern summers, Carmen for hot, humid southern zones, Lunchbox Orange for containers, almost never appear on the display table. The chain stocks what sells, not what produces. The fix is the seed catalog: Johnny's Selected Seeds, Pinay Tree Garden Seeds, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. $5 a packet, 50 seeds. Start indoors 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. Transplant at the soil temperature in number 3. The right variety in the right zone outperforms California Wonder 2 to 5 times over in fruit set. Same $5 a packet, sitting on the rack next to the transplant display the customer never looks at. That is mistake number 5. The $4 transplant of the wrong cultivar. Number 4. The fertilizer the chain trained the staff to recommend. The customer walks into the fertilizer aisle holding a bell pepper transplant. The staff was trained to direct them to the bag with tomato and pepper on the front. Espoma Tomato Tone 346 with 8% calcium, $15.50 for 4 pounds at Home Depot. The branding is selling you calcium addition and convenience. The chemistry is not selling you anything you could not buy cheaper down the aisle at a markup of 2 to 3 times per unit of nutrient. The deeper mistake is what the customer applies and when. Peppers want different nutrition at different growth stages. The Michigan State Extension recommends front-loading nitrogen before bud set, then backing off sharply. The University of Florida commercial pepper research shows potassium demand rising sharply from flowering through maturity. Most gardeners apply the high nitrogen tomato tone every 2 to 4 weeks all summer, the way the bag label suggests, and end up with a 2.5-foot lush green plant producing 4 small peppers instead of 15. The honest recommendation: buy a single bag of balanced organic 5-10-10 or 5-5-5 at the generic shelf, roughly half the price of tomato tone per pound of nutrient. Apply 1/4 cup per plant at transplant. Side dress at 3 weeks. Then stop until fruit set begins. Once fruit is setting, switch to a high potassium feed, generic 307 or wood ash from your stove worked lightly into the surface soil. Every 3 weeks until late August. 2 to 3 applications across the season. Generic products: less than half what the chain sells you on the same shelf. 2 of the 5 so far, and 3 more to come. Number 3 is the one I called the killer at the start of this video. It is also the mistake the chain garden centers commit on purpose in the seasonal push to move transplants in April and early May. Drop your state and your USDA zone in the comments. Tell me one pepper variety the local garden center pushed on you that did not produce well in your yard. The pattern in those comments is the kind of data I cannot get from inside the store anymore. If this video, the kind that names the chain's training playbook behind the bag on the shelf, is the kind you wish someone had shown you 20 years ago, the like button helps the algorithm find more gardeners in the same situation. The subscribe button is right below for the next page when it drops. Now to the killer. Number 3. The mistake that kills plants, not slows them, not weakens them, but kills them outright in May and early June across the American Midwest, Northeast, and Pacific Northwest. The customer transplants the pepper into the garden bed too early. The University of Maryland Extension publishes the soil temperature threshold as 65 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the minimum soil temperature for a transplanted pepper to begin establishing roots and growing. Below 60 degrees, growth stalls completely. The plant just sits there, in the language of the UMD bulletin. Below 55 degrees, the plant suffers chilling injury, root rot, stunted growth, complete failure to thrive, and many plants do not recover. The University of California Cooperative Extension publishes research showing that pepper transplants planted 2 weeks late into 65-degree soil consistently outperform pepper transplants planted on the customer's target date into 58-degree soil. The plant put into warmer soil 2 weeks later catches up and surpasses the plant put into cold soil on time. The customer does not know this number. The customer plants when the calendar says May 15th, or Mother's Day, or after the last frost, or whatever traditional date the customer's father planted on. The actual soil temperature on that date in most American zones in most years runs between 52 and 62 degrees, below the threshold. The threshold is the same. The calendar is not. Your soil 65-degree date varies by hundreds of miles and weeks. Deep south, the bed hits 65 by mid-March. The killer in your zone is not cold soil, but the cold snap that catches the early transplant on a March morning. Midwest, the bed crosses 65 between mid and late May, 2 weeks after the chain stops promotional pricing on transplants. Northeast, Mountain States, Pacific Northwest, the bed reaches 65 between late May and mid-June. The chain pushes the same promotional calendar everywhere, and the cold soil mortality on those northern displays is the highest in the country. The chain garden center sells pepper transplants starting in late April. Every storefront display I built across 34 years pushed pepper transplants 3 to 5 weeks before the average pepper-safe soil temperature in our county. The display rotated bell pepper, jalapeno, sweet banana, and stacked quart pots from late April through early June. The chain pricing strategy concentrated promotional discounts in the first 2 weeks of May, exactly when the soil in most of the chain's service area was still too cold for the plant to survive in. The customer bought during the promotion. The customer planted in cold soil. The customer came back to the store in 2 to 4 weeks for replacement plants. The chain made the customer pay twice. Once for the original transplant, once for the replacement. I sold the second transplant to thousands of customers. I knew within 10 seconds of looking at their plant photo that the problem was cold soil at the original transplant. I never told them. The fix is a thermometer. A soil thermometer at the hardware store costs $4 to $7. Stick the probe 4 inches into the bed where you intend to plant. Take readings at 8 in the morning for 3 consecutive sunny days. If the average reading hits 65 or higher, and the night air temperature has not dropped below 50 in the same 3-day window, the bed is ready for the pepper. If the reading is below 65, wait. A week of delay costs nothing. A pepper transplanted into cold soil is a dead pepper. And a replacement is another $4.98 at the chain garden center for the same chain that pushed the early plant on you in the first place. Black plastic mulch laid down 2 weeks before transplant raises soil temperature by 5 to 8 degrees. If you are pushing the calendar in a cold zone, the plastic helps. Cut a planting hole and set the transplant through the mulch into the warm soil below. The customer who plants on the calendar instead of the thermometer pays for 2 pepper plants every spring. The customer who reads the thermometer pays for 1. Across 34 years of selling pepper transplants in May and June, this single mistake accounted for more replacement sales than every other failure mode combined. While we are here, has the chain ever sold you a replacement pepper plant in late May or early June? Drop a yes or no in the comments with the year. I want to see the pattern across the country. I read everyone. Number 2. The reason the bottom of your pepper turns black and rots. Blossom end rot. The disorder that makes the bottom 1/3 of a pepper sink in, turn black, develop a leathery texture, and become unusable. Every American pepper gardener has seen it. Most American pepper gardeners think it is a disease and reach for a fungicide. It is not a disease. The University of Georgia Center for Agriculture and Environmental Stewardship and the Pacific Northwest Plant Disease Handbook both classify blossom end rot as a physiological disorder caused by calcium uptake failure. The customer soil almost always has adequate calcium. The plant cannot move the calcium where it needs to go. Calcium moves through the plant inside the xylem. Carried in the water column, the plant pulls up from the roots through transpiration. Calcium is immobile once it is deposited, meaning the calcium that reaches the developing fruit of flower set is the calcium that builds the fruit. If the water cone gets interrupted at the wrong moment, the calcium does not reach the fruit. The cell walls fail to develop properly at the blossom end, and the fruit develops the characteristic blackening. The interruption comes from one of 4 things: drought stress between watering, sudden overwatering after drought, root damage from hoeing too close, high summer heat that pushes transpiration past the root system's ability to keep up. The Chain Garden Center sells the customer a calcium spray, Espalma Cal Mag Bonide Rot Stop, branded tomato and pepper calcium formulations, at $15 to $25 per bottle, with the implicit promise that spraying the leaves with calcium will fix the rot. The University of Georgia research and most peer-reviewed extension publications agree that foliar calcium sprays are largely ineffective for blossom end rot in peppers. The calcium delivered to the leaves does not get retransported to developing fruit. The customer sprays the leaves, the rot continues, the customer buys another bottle, the chain sells more product. The actual fix is consistent watering plus 3 to 4 inches of organic mulch. Mulch the pepper bed with straw, chopped leaves, or grass clippings, 3 to 4 inches deep, kept clear of the stems by a couple of inches. The mulch buffers soil moisture against the swings between the rainy day and the hot, dry afternoon. Consistent soil moisture supports consistent transpiration. Consistent transpiration delivers the calcium the plant needs to the developing fruit. Blossom end rot drops to a trace problem within the first season of consistent mulching. A pickup truck bale of straw runs $5 to $8 at the farm supply store and mulches a 30 by 30 pepper bed for 2 seasons. Chopped fall leaves from your own yard are free. The mulch also blocks soil splash that carries fungal spores onto the leaves. The mulch also reduces evaporation by about 30% in midsummer heat. The mulch also moderates soil temperature when the air hits 95 degrees in August. 1 bale of straw, 3 problems prevented. If a soil test confirms low calcium, pelletized garden lime at the hardware store fixes it. 5-pound bag under $10, applied at 30 pounds per 1,000 square feet, mixed in fall. Lasts 3 to 4 years. Same calcium. Different shelf. Different price. Number 1. The mistake that compounds the previous 4 into the most expensive pepper season the American backyard gardener has ever had. The customer who has made mistakes 5, 4, 3, and 2 now stands at the garden center counter in late July with a photo on a phone. Yellow leaves on the lower half of the plant. Black bottoms on the few peppers that did set. Curling leaves on the new growth at the top. A bug or 2 visible on the underside of 1 leaf in the photo. The staff was trained to look at that photo and recommend product, not diagnosis. Product. The recommended response was one of 3 categories: insecticidal soaps and neem oil at $10 to $18, copper fungicides at $15, calcium magnesium sprays and bloom boosters at $18 to $22. A typical July visit by a frustrated pepper customer added $30 to $70 to the chain register receipt. The customer left carrying 2 to 4 bottles of intervention chemistry, plus a bag of fertilizer for the next round. The plant the customer was treating with $30 to $70 of product was usually a plant that had been stressed by a $5 mistake at transplant time. Cold soil shocked the root system. Inconsistent watering interrupted calcium uptake. The wrong fertilizer schedule produced lush leaves instead of fruit. The wrong cultivar set fewer peppers than the customer expected. The plant was simply showing the symptoms of accumulated stress, not a disease that the chain's product line could solve. The honest fix in late July for a stressed pepper plant is not chemistry. It is mulch, water, time, maybe a side dressing of compost. If you have not mulched yet, lay down 4 inches of straw or shredded leaves around the base of the plant. Water deeply once or twice a week, not lightly every day. Stop fertilizing if you have been using high nitrogen products. Wait 3 weeks. Most plants recover and produce a fall flush of peppers. If a real pest is causing the leaf damage, aphids, 2-spotted spider mites, pepper weevil in southern zones, identify the pest before you treat. Aphids are visible to the naked eye, pear-shaped, soft-bodied, clustered on the undersides of new growth in greens and yellows, sometimes blacks. 2-spotted spider mites are nearly invisible to the eye, but leave behind a fine bronzing or stippling on the upper leaf surface and a webbing in the crook between leaf and stem. Pepper weevil, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, is a small black snout-nosed beetle that lays eggs inside flower buds and drops the buds before they open. Each pest requires a different response, and the wrong response makes the problem worse. The county extension office identifies pest specimens by photo at no charge. A correct identification turns a $30 guess into a $4 targeted spray, or, more often, no treatment at all because the pest population is not yet at action threshold. The chain staff was never trained to recommend the extension office. Product moves inventory. The county extension office does not. About 70% of pepper problems brought to the counter were stress that the plant would recover from given time and basic care. I sold the $30 intervention kit instead. The training program said to. That is mistake number 1. The $70 trip in July for a problem caused by the $4 mistake at transplant time in May. The cure is the soil thermometer in April, the seed packet in February, the mulch bale in May, and the patience to let the plant work through the season. $20 in real inputs versus $150 to $200. The chain sells the customer who follows the training. That is number 1. The $70 bottle for the $4 problem. 5 mistakes, but really 3 disciplines. The first is variety. Mistake 5. The right cultivar for your zone is the foundation of every other decision across the season. Skip the chain transplant. Order seeds in February. The second is timing. Mistake 3. The soil thermometer at transplant is the single most important number across the entire pepper season. Read the thermometer, not the calendar. The third is stewardship. Mistakes 4, 2, and 1. Consistent watering. Mulch 4 inches deep. Restraint on the fertilizer aisle. Patience when the July leaf damage looks like crisis. Variety. Timing. Stewardship. Get those 3 right, and the pepper bed feeds your family from August through October. If you have been growing peppers for 20 years or more, you have grown through enough seasons to know what a real harvest looks like. A pepper plant set in warm soil with the right cultivar and consistent watering produces more peppers in August than the kitchen counter holds. That is the inheritance to leave the next gardener in your family, not a bottle of fungicide on the shelf. The patience to read the thermometer and pick the right seed packet. Send this video to one person whose pepper plants quit on them every July: the neighbor, the brother-in-law, the retired teacher down the street. 1 link, no message needed. 5 mistakes from the notebook. Soil thermometer before transplant. Right cultivar for your zone, seeds in February. Generic fertilizer schedule, balanced at transplant, again at 3 weeks, high potassium at fruit set, then stop. 4 inches of mulch. Consistent watering deep, not shallow daily. Skip the chemistry until the county extension office tells you the actual problem. $20 in inputs. 3 pepper plants. A summer's harvest. Keep your money in your pocket and your hands in the dirt. I'll see you on the next page.